So good evening, everybody. For those who haven't, I see a lot of staff in the room, so you know who I am. But for those who are not staff, my name is Vince Adams. I'm a board development specialist with the Oregon School Boards Association. We represent and help school boards, and one of the things that we do is executive searches. And so we've been supporting your school board in your district in their search for a superintendent. And so that's why I'm here, and we are going to have a community forum. I've gotten a number of questions from you. So we're filling those out on 3x5 cards. If you have another question as we're going through these, just raise your hand and we'll get you another card. That's fine. I only have a handful of cards, so this is going to go pretty quick. You should have a feedback form. So we need to get your thoughts on the candidate tonight, who I'll introduce in just a moment. So get that, because the school board is going to look at each and every one of those, and that will go into their decision-making process this evening. So with that, I'm going to introduce Rick Sullivan. And Rick, why don't you just say a few words, and then I'll go organize questions, and then we'll get started.
It's Rich with an H. There's no problem. And we're not like super close. We're just on video, so we have to stay like right next to each other. Thank you for having me today. I got to spend time at both schools and with all the staff and students that I got to meet today. It was really a pleasure. So I really thank you for welcoming me into your community. I've loved the questions that I've gotten, because they're not just questions. They're a bit of a glimpse into who you are. And so if you're a parent of some of the kids I met with today, you should be proud, especially the high school kids. They asked some really wonderful questions. So enough of me talking. Let's
diving in.
dive in.
So we're going to start with enrollment. Two questions here. What are ways you anticipate being able to boost enrollment? And then another question here that's similar but slightly different. How do you plan to rebuild our school and bring back students we have lost to other districts?
Yeah, this is a question I haven't heard today, except 17 times. So it's clear. It's clear there's some concerns or some issues or some areas you want addressed. So enrollment, looking at enrollment, since 2019, approximately 100 kids have moved on. So that's not atypical that we've lost kids after the COVID pandemic. All districts lost kids. So how do we bring kids back? Well, I was clear at the board. My goal the focus isn't just to bring kids back. The focus is to build a place where people want to come. That's where it starts. So you guys have articulated throughout the day what's special about Butte Falls. That was one of the questions I asked. And the size of the community is a asset, because you get to know everybody. You can know specifically what everybody needs, when we're talking about kids especially. So that's something you can't do in big schools. All right. Second, we learn what people value. Being part of this family, this community, is a value. So how do you get people that don't know that or aren't part of it to want to come here? You can't just say, we're great, come join us. We're going to need to offer something that they don't know they need, they don't know exists, or that they want because it's such a special thing that they can't live without it. So there's some specifics, right? The small class size is a huge positive. Most school districts have large class sizes. So that's a positive for parents, because you get a personalized experience. The second, and it's probably the first, Ben, is there something, I think there's a special thing that we have in this district called the Natural Resource Center. So when I talk to the folks that I know in the Medford School District, or the folks I know in Eagle Point or Central Point, have you heard about the NRC? The what? No one has heard about this. SOU knows about it because they're partnered with it, right? RCC knows about it. They're partnered with it. SOESD, the Ed Services District, knows something, right? But the kids or the folks that could come and increase our enrollment don't know about it. That doesn't mean you guys haven't tried to get the message out. It means they have not received the message. So the first step is talking about what this district and what each of the schools has to offer that is different from everywhere else. That's the start. So how would I increase enrollment, or how would I address some of those shortfalls? It starts with just talking about what exists here. And the more I learn about it, the more I can authentically talk about it because I'm experiencing it. But the Natural Resource Center is I guess the thing we could hang our hat on for sure, because it's like nothing else. So do we want hundreds of kids that don't value being in a small community? Well, financially, you could say, yeah, we just need the money. But does that make our district and our community better? No. Our community is better because a lot of you have joined it for the reason that we would want people to join it. So my job, my role is to create that shared message through the board's vision, through each of your points of views, and then be the messenger for it and begin to look at those that we offer something they've been searching for. Because there's a lot of lost kids at Eagle Point High School. There's a lot of lost kids at my son's high school, South Medford. And they just haven't figured out that we're where they can find themselves. So that would be my first step in trying to increase them. And the second part of the question was?
It was recruiting back.
Recruiting.
That left.
Yeah, so I would need to know why. You guys probably know better than I do because they were your neighbors. I need to know from you, why did they leave? I know there's some things we don't offer. There's some supports, with our special ed programs possibly, or some advanced academic classes, or sports, or extracurricular activities. There's things like that we can definitely begin to add back, which again, draw people here. But just adding a sport or adding a class doesn't mean it fits that need for them. So I need to know what our kids need. You want to know what our high school kids said today? You don't want to know? Okay, you want to know. Good.
I already know.
Yeah. Some sports, right? But they want activities. They want school spirit. They want a sense of belonging. And I know you guys have tons of efforts to make that happen. So why do they still not feel it? Right? And so talking to the kids and finding out how to bring that to them, take care of our current kids first, they will probably be a better messenger than me on why their friends or people they know should come here. So it starts with them. And it starts with families. Same thing. I answered it?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. So, these questions group in onesies and twosies. This one has 3. This is an area of I think, some significant interest for the district. There's a couple here. How are you going to better serve special ed population? What do you see as possible what is possible for special education? What other services will you bring? But I really like this one here. What is your philosophy or belief regarding special education students and staffing? And then there's some detail here that we can dig into.
Okay.
Why don't you start with the philosophy and belief, and then we'll go deeper.
So, first of all, I'm married to a special ed coordinator who works in the Eagle Point School District, who has a master's in special ed. So our dinner table conversations are pretty interesting. So I am well schooled on a lot of what's most important and what she's facing every day. How do I view special ed? So I use the example of being a parent. So I have a son that has a food allergy. A lot of us do. Okay. So it doesn't mean that I raise him different than his brother who doesn't have a food allergy. It means we make dinner. His plate or his meal doesn't include the thing that he's allergic to, but he still eats dinner with us. He still has the same type of food. It just is accommodated to meet his need. I could just make a dinner that doesn't include anything. He's allergic to dairy, by the way. So if I deprived my other son of dairy, like cheese, then he would be lost because that's 90% of what he eats. So how do you take care of a need that one or a small percentage of your family or school has, at the same time embracing everyone's needs? That's how I start. So I don't take away from one to take care of another. We find a way to accommodate what everybody needs, each and every one of it. So I look at learning no different. The way I look at special ed services, they're required by law, by the student's IEP. So we incorporate that into what we're already doing to provide them that support that they need. Same thing would be if they're an English learner, right? Or they have other needs. We provide what each and every student needs from the initial instruction or initial experience. That's where it starts. So just like we as a parent, we kind of look at a lot of things that way. Behavior, right? If a kid has a behavior issue or makes a poor decision, I don't know about you, I'd like to send mine. Actually, the kids, those are my wife's kids, right, that make the mistakes. Mine are the ones that get all the positive. And she'd say the opposite. But we don't send them to the neighbor's house, right, when they screw up. We'd like to, but we don't, right? We deal with them. But every student has a different kind of reaction to making the next right decision. We need to set them up to make the right decision, so that approach is going to be different. We still hold them to the same standard, but how we address it or how we help them reach it is personal, is individual. Again, that's the strength of being in a small district where everybody knows each other, right? And there's smaller numbers, so we can do that. Try doing it with 30 kids in a class. It's hard. Here we have a gift. We have less. That's where it starts. Second is the supports. Just because we've identified where a student has a need doesn't mean we can automatically meet it. And so my role is to reach out to those support services that exist, whether it's the ESD, Southern Oregon Ed Services District, which you do a lot of now, I know that, or it's utilizing other folks on staff, okay? Or it's training. It could be as simple as that. We need to provide extra training. So then, we work with the board and we work with the budget office to create the ability to make our teachers and our support staff as well trained or as well equipped to meet the needs of all of our kids. But it starts with that philosophy. They're my kids. So I'm not sending them somewhere else to get taken care of. They're our kids. So what do I need? What do you need to be able to take care of our kids first? My role will be able to get that for you or do whatever I have to.
I love that analogy. As a dad and also as a person who works with school boards, is it really makes that approachable. So let's operationalize this. And this a couple of add-on questions are really, how do you make that happen? And the examples they have here is inclusion versus pull-out.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is, staffing one-to-one assistance. How do you operationalize to ensure that there's services for each and every kid?
Well, it's a challenge. In a school district this size, and there's a term called caseload. So if you work in special ed, you know what I'm talking about. The amount of kids who are on an IEP that you're responsible for, that's called a caseload. We don't have a ton of kids like in various levels of similar need. If you did, you could have certain classrooms or certain programs more available to them. So I tend to come from the place of a full inclusion model. That's what I support. Why? Because that's what we as parents, we're the most inclusive, full inclusive, room there is. How do we do that when we have such varying levels of need and support? It's about people and support staff. The team determines that, not me. An IEP team meets, right, and determines what the level of need is for our students. And then my role is to make sure that we have that as a district. If not, I have to go get it. A lot of times that comes from other places like the ESD, because we just don't have the funds to be able to support full-time positions sometimes, or we can support partial positions or shared positions. It's really a case-by-case, as needed that the IEP team determines. But again, utilizing those, whether it's Eagle Point or it's the ESD, those resources, those places with the resources that we can't fully put on our own staff to provide it. But I think the most important thing is listening to what the need is. So if my teachers and the teachers working with special ed students and their staff are saying, we don't have the ability to meet the needs of this kid. You don't tell them, no, do your best, and then buy them cookies, and then it all of a sudden fixes it. I have to go out and get what they need, but I need to know based on, whatever data we can draw or, whatever we're looking at or what the IEP team decides, what is it that you need, and then go get it from those resources that I have available. A lot of times it's training, and so I think that solves a lot, but a lot of times it's not. And so it's kind of solving those problem solving on a case-by-case basis. I wish I had a perfect answer for that one, because I don't, because it's so unique to the situation that exists. Until we face it, it's kind of hard to say. But I tell you, you're going to be supported 100% in it, and we're going to arrive at a way to handle it that we can both, live with, so to speak.
Thanks for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next one, you touched on this just a little while ago, and it's about behavior. And so the questions I have is discipline, ? Accountability, ? Transparency, ? How do we build all that into behavior management?
So discipline was the first part.
Discipline, accountability.
And then transparency. That's the one I'm going to have to come back to, because that doesn't match to me. So I want to hear what transparency means. Maybe there's more
I might
elaborate.
know more of what they meant. I didn't write it. But
Okay.
I might have an idea.
Okay, so let's talk about the first two first. Discipline and accountability. Okay, so I believe that our best way to manage behavior is to empower kids to manage their own behavior. Okay, and what I mean by that, if we present them with what they did, meaning here's the rule or here's the situation, do you believe you acted in the wrong way, inappropriately? If they say no, then we go down a different path. That path would be about educating that student that this is why that was not the appropriate way to handle it. Okay. If they go, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I lost my cool. I'd like to make it right. Both those have an accountability component to them, right? But they're going to come from a different place. One is someone who's showing they made the wrong mistake, and we need to give them an opportunity to show, I made a mistake and I'd like to make it right. So that's a consequence. That's accountability. Okay, would we call that discipline? Well, to me, that's self-discipline. They're disciplining themselves, and we're going to give them that opportunity. Okay, so that could be a second grader who lost his cool, called someone a name, right? And we go talk to him, and then we bring him back to class because he says, I shouldn't have done that. And we give him an opportunity to apologize. Okay, that's accountability. It's a consequence. Okay. The person who says, I don't care, I did whatever, I'll do it again. So now we're going to teach that lesson a little different. Okay, and it may sting, because no, you're going to need to understand that what you did is not okay. And the consequence may be a loss of things like your time, your choices, until you understand and you're ready to take some responsibility for your actions and show some self-discipline. So it's not just punishment. It doesn't solve anything. Okay. What it does is create a reinforcement that they can act out, they get in trouble, and then they start to be known for that. And they start to find some identity in that. And that's the last thing we want. What we want is a kid who changes their behaviors. And sometimes we have to reinforce that very strongly and reasonably. Okay. So that's my view on that. However, there are things that you don't give me a chance for you to make up for. There are things written into the law or ed code or rules that require a very strict punishment, consequence, right? And those are very clearly laid out. Those don't happen as much, but when they do, they're going to be enforced. Okay. The other thing is super important to me is if a kid breaks a rule, I need to know, and I think you would all want to know, and parents want to know, do they know that was a rule? Have we clearly articulated, this is an expectation that we have for you? Or do we hold kids accountable to some things that we've never told them we expect from them? I'm not saying that's the case, but I need to know that. Same thing for adults. Right? And if an adult acts in a way they're not supposed to, did they know that? Have we told them that's the expectation, is this is something you need to be or need to be doing or not doing? Because we owe that to everybody. Yeah, there's, you stop at a red light, we know that. Those things are known. And so there are definitely some very clear-cut things. But for the rest of it, we want to explain what our expectations are. We're going to expect you to hold yourself to them. And then there's consequences if you don't. And hopefully you start to show self-discipline yourself. Why is that important? Because I have a junior who's a year away from graduating. And if he can't discipline himself, then what am I going to do? I'm going to be running around making up for all of his mistakes or all the things he gets in trouble for because he's never learned to do it himself. Okay, so we have to give them an opportunity with us to practice and get better and improve and show that they can do it and then make mistakes, but then fix it. And so that's how I view that whole process. Okay. Doesn't mean they don't get in trouble. Just means we're going to expect them to fix it. Okay. Hope that answered it. Oh, wait, the transparency.
Does that have to do with communication with parents? I didn't write the card.
Probably. That's kind of what, as I was talking. So yeah, I mean, if a kid has a consequence or is spoken to, I would expect there'd be communication at home, not necessarily from me, right? I want to empower teachers to be able to manage their classroom, and we're there to reinforce their rules and their word. And if they something happens, they follow our plan, whatever the agreed upon process for behavior management. They would communicate with parents. Parents would be more than welcome to ask questions back. They can disagree, right? You have the right to disagree, but at the same time, sometimes things happen. I would like it to be a partnership. So parents reinforce what we're saying, we reinforce what parents are saying, and those things are kind of mutually respected or valued. Also notifying staff if we've had incidents, they need to know that there were incidents, especially if they're a safety issue, notifying them. Again, that's a gift of having a smaller group. Think that covered the transparency? I don't want you to give away if you ask the question.
Okay. Going to completely shift gears.
Okay.
Or maybe not. I mean, no, we're shifting gears. So I'll just read it verbatim. What are your thoughts and beliefs on the interaction and responsibilities between unions, both classified and certified, and school leadership, including the superintendent?
So thoughts and
Beliefs.
about interactions.
And then maybe let's handle this like we did special education. Talk about your philosophy.
Okay.
And then talk about how you operationalize that.
Okay. So unions are important because they're a voice for the staff. So based on our collective bargaining agreements, they advocate for keeping us accountable to following what we've all agreed on. To me, unions are something that I don't even want to talk about. I want to talk about relationships. So whoever's in charge of the union is the person that is speaking for the group they represent. So my practice is we would meet monthly. So the union heads and I would meet monthly to talk about what's going on. What are you seeing? What are you thinking about? What are some areas that you may want to see bargained in the future? It's more just a conversation. I don't want the time we talk to be just at bargaining time when the contract's up. If that's the case, then we don't have a relationship, and that's not us going to be doing something together. Additionally, both the classified union and the teachers union, you understand my role as a superintendent is I work for the board, and the board ultimately makes the decisions on our collective bargaining agreement. They charge me with being the person that negotiates. Mainly, do you know why that is? Because I'm the one doing the work with you alongside every day. So I have a very good idea of why you're asking what you're asking. So the only way I can be an advocate for you, as much as an advocate for the district and the board, is by building that relationship together. So talking a lot, working together, working with building principals to mirror that same relationship. Okay. The last thing I want it to be is adversarial. Right? It shouldn't be like, this is what we want, and I say no. That's not, I'm not interested in that. I want to talk about what you feel like you need, and I want to share from the board perspective what we have available and how do we all come together. So that starts with creating kind of a shared interest, like what's important to us. Well, safety and well-being of students and staff is number one. So what do we bargain that falls under that? Right? How do we address that? How do we make sure we have a highly trained, highly functioning staff? So a lot of professional development and resources. And then how do we compensate, right? Because if we can't compensate on level or on par with other districts, surrounding districts, then we won't get good people. We won't keep the good people we have. So we have to have a shared kind of group of values. And then that's where the bargaining piece comes from. But I'm going to go back to just the constant relationships of doing the work together. That's where it begins. So.
Okay. Take any last questions, but we're going to end on nuts and bolts, so I don't have any other thing.
Okay.
And so.
Then we can take some just off the cuff stuff too.
Totally fine.
Okay.
We're up against time.
Oh,
that's okay.
Gotcha.
So tell me your ideas for the elementary school. And then the next question is, do you have access to resources to improve our elementary campus? I have a very specific add-on.
Okay. Ideas for the elementary school. I haven't been here very long, so I don't know what's needed. What I saw today is a lot of really happy kids. And that's the great part of elementary. The minute a kid doesn't seem happy, there's a problem. And so what I want is to maximize the happiness of our elementary kids as much as possible. I want to maximize the happiness of our staff as much as possible. Okay. There's some things I can control, some things I can't. Resources, well, I don't have a checkbook that I can just write a check or anything like that. What I can bring you is what I know and what I've done in the past, and listen to you, tell me what you need. Okay. And then start to address that. What I saw glaring, you guys have done tons of work around your campuses. I was actually surprised at how well kept they are, how up to date they are. They don't look like an old, rural bunch of buildings. They don't. What I want to see, and I didn't see it today. I know that 6th and 7th grade are here. I didn't see any high school kids on campus. Those kids are the rock stars to elementary kids. How, and maybe it exists because I know there was a field trip today. So maybe the high school kids, a lot of them are on a field trip. I don't know. But based on that, I would love to see some high school mentoring our oldest kids, mentoring, doing things more common. We're close enough, we can get here. And then how do we reward our high school kids for wanting to do that and getting something out of it more than just, a credit or something. So I'd like to see that. Again, I don't know if it exists or not because I was just here, just today. I think going back to some of the other questions, we probably could use some more kids. I'm done having them, so I'm not going to be able to add to it. I don't know what your plans are, but we're going to go look for more families that want to come here. But the biggest reason is why. And you're all going to have to help me with that. And that's what I'm most looking forward to, is developing the why Butte Falls that I can then put on a flag and go down the hill and get it. Okay. So what was the other one?
Okay, so this is the nuts and bolts.
Okay.
It's really specific. And it's brain specific, but let's broaden it.
Okay.
Our playground is the first thing seen when entering town.
Yes.
Which is really specific. I don't want you to talk about
Okay.
playground equipment specifically, but what does facilities mean in the context of education, and why is it important?
Okay.
Why should we care about the playground?
So should the fact there's a porta potty right out in front view like that, is that an issue, or is that the first thing we saw?
That's just town.
Why? No, I'm joking, but you needed the porta potty. I know why. So the point is, why do facilities matter? Because it's part of pride, right? Most of us have built a home that we're proud of, or we're working towards making it proud. Well, why wouldn't the school be the same? as a parent, my kids spend more time at the school than they do with me, waking hours. So I want to send them to a place that I'm proud of, that they're proud of, and that I can, want to be a part of. So I think that there's things you can do. I think that has to be student-led, meaning I'd love to see more things like at the NRC where we have projects that have a kid face on them, meaning kids that put their hands on different projects. There's the water fountain over at the NRC, right? Things like that. So I think there's a way to make this feel like their place. But teachers need to feel that same way, right? Support staff need to feel the same way. What is it about where you go to work that makes you feel pulled there and that you're proud of it? So I want to hear what that is. It's not just my idea. I could put a cutout of me out there so you can take selfies or something, but I don't know if that gets it. But maybe it is, doing that. Phil, maybe we can have he'll always be here. We'll have a Phil selfie picture, on the wall. I'm joking, but. Oh, so you like that idea? Not on the porta potty. It would be somewhere, I think there's a lot of things. I would want to hear what kids want to see. There's probably certain equipment they want to see out there, right? There's probably certain things that we as a staff would want to see. I don't necessarily have the idea because I am not part of your culture. I'm asking you to, accept the ring and welcome me till death do us part. And then we'll figure that out together. But I'm not trying to tell you what I think you should do. I'm telling you I want to be a part of what you do.
So that's a perfect segue. I mean, we have a lot of staff here, but there are some kids that have never met you before.
Okay.
Why Beat Falls for you?
Yes, I've heard that a couple of times today. Condensed version. I grew up in a very small town in a community where very similar. And so my entire life was school. And so some of the most important people in my life were teachers. Some of the people that scarred me the worst were teachers. So I want to be a part of something where, just like in a family, you learn from the down days and the people who sometimes it doesn't always go great, but those people that are exceptional, I want to be part of that. And I can't do that in a school of 1,300 kids. I can't do that in a district that's too big. I need to do it in a small town. I need to feel like we're all part of this. I need to feel like I don't have to just do this, that some days I can clean tables. Some days I can go, buck some lumber. I want to be able to do the things that I also like to do, that I can contribute to, and not just fill a role. But more than that, I want to be able to do that with everybody. And with a school and a district and a community this size, I have the ability to do that. And so that's what's important to me. It's what I know. I also have a small farm at home. So part of being in the outdoors is my life, right? Raising animals, having my kids work and get dirty, grow our own food, try to figure out what killed my bees over the winter, all that stuff. So I want to be part of that. And I'm also wanting a place that I can just spend the rest of my career in. And I want to do that in a place where they know me by name and they can call me my first name and not have to be worried about it. So that's why. And then there's this thing that I'm really drawn to.
I almost wore my NRC shirt.
Because all joking aside, I think that Natural Resource Center can put this town and this school district on the map, and it hasn't even been touched yet. Everyone here knows how great it is. Maybe they do. I hope everybody here knows how good it is. But it's something that has a potential to change lives of kids regardless of school district boundaries. And that's why I'm here.
So join me in thanking Richard Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So the next step is if you have a response form in your lap, please fill that out. If you walk in later, I will get you some. We want your feedback. So school board, you're going to be going over, and the school board is going to be deliberating and making a decision tonight. And I think that's it for the evening. That's the end of our program.
Thank you.
Richard, I think an apiary would be a great addition.
Yeah, I think you'd be a great guy to come watch it in the
Yeah,
weekend.
so you're volunteering your expertise.
That's right.
The honey tastes pretty good.
Okay, so you would purchase the product that the kids. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will work with you.
You would work? Awesome.
I like how these have got pretty good extract. Yeah.